Hi everyone, Pokémon has just held their second regional championships for the European circuit in the city of Lille, France. I'm here to break down the highlights and takeaways from the TCG Masters event, where I'll uncover the stories of the event, including which deck or decks dominated the tournament and who ultimately took the crown. The previous regional championships held just 1 week before in Louisville, Kentucky saw Caleb Gadamer's Raging Bolt deck take home the title, overcoming a surprising resurgence of Lost Box piloted by Michael Davidson. As the fourth event in the Brilliant Stars to Stellar Crown format and the first in the US-Canada region, Louisville gave us new insights into the evolving meta. But how did it really go down in Louisville? Well, Terrapagos EX Dusknoir variants saw increased amounts of play due to their impressive finishes in previous tournaments. But the star of the show really was Raging Bolt, who continued to remain the most popular deck in day one. Lugia, Regidrago, Dragapult and Palkia rounded out the remaining most played decks. However, compared to Dortmund regionals, it was Charizard EX which had a notable fall off in play by the competitors. With just a short turnaround time before Lille Regional Championships, players had some key considerations they needed to ask. Is Lost Box a true threat once again following its second place finish in Louisville? And how will players react to Raging Bolt's success, the latest build with heavier bravery charms likely to be the way to play the deck going forward? Now back to the Lille Regional Championships, where 1,311 Master Division players had gathered at the Grand Palais venue, all aiming to become the second European Regional Champion of the 2024-2025 season, and secure a spot at the World Championships in Anaheim, California. Our forecasters for the event and guides throughout the tournament were none other than Ross Gilbert, Shea Burton, Freya Pierce, and spookily cosplaying as a TCG caster for this event, Barish Akos. They provided the play-by-play, taking us through the tournament's highs and lows. The day one meta breakdown of Lille was so similar to Louisville, with just only some slight deltas in the percentages played. Raging Bolt EX continued to dominate as the most played deck of the actual tournament, with other decks like Lugia, Charizard, Palkia, Regidrago, Dragapult and Terrapagos making up the rest of a truly diverse top 7. Lost Box did make its way back onto the best of the rest graphic, though only 3% of the field actually kept faith in flower selecting despite its strong finish in Louisville. The remaining highest played decks included ones that have fallen off since the release of Stellar Crown, and these include Gardevoir and Miraidon decks. The only other notable underrepresentation, it seems, would be of control variants for this tournament. Pidgeot Control and Snorlax Control did not show up on the stream graphics at all. But moving into the day 2 meta, where we really do get a better picture of things, 116 players had advanced by reaching the 18-point threshold, and we saw some major swings in the decks that made it in. The biggest swing, Raging Bolt dropped significantly from the most played deck to only 9 qualifying into day 2. This represented under 5% of all Raging Bolt players progressing, a really poor conversion. Elsewhere, it was Lugia who stormed to the top of the most represented decks with 18 players, closely followed by Regidrago with 15. Charizard, off the back of a really strong conversion in Louisville, maintained its representation percentage, showing the true power of that Burning Darkness attack. The surprise, however, felt like Snorlax Control, able to finally join the graphic, entering day 2 as the 4th most played deck. One thing to note, the Gardevoir pictured on the stream graphic of 9 players also actually captures Bennett Gardevoir decks under the same Gardevoir bucket. Well, what can we take away from the day 1 and day 2 meta breakdown? Players were definitely prepared to play against Raging Bolt, but how so? Knowing the trends from regional to regional, Raging Bolt has continued to be the most played deck due to its relatively simpler game plan and consistency. Historically, we have also seen many high caliber players not actually pick up that deck, favouring decks that many view allow additional skill expression. But this all changed in Louisville, as we've seen in the results. Through the data and information provided, one way we have seen players adapt to shifts in the meta is through their deck choice. Most decks shown in the day 2 representation of Lille take a slightly favourable matchup against Raging Bolt. For example, Snorlax, Charizard, Gardevoir and Burnett, to just name a few. And then there are those who have looked to increase their odds in the matchup by selecting a deck that utilizes cards to counter others, or include tech cards of their own. An example looked into here is the increased play in Bravery Charms in Raging Bolt. Providing a plus 50 HP buff to an already high HP basic Pokemon provides some additional protection for return KOs, or even just helping its support Pokemon be out of range from attacks. Because of this, a hypothesis could be that there are more anti-tool cards in Day 2 of Lille compared to Louisville, and more players or decks will be playing anti-tool cards. We'll focus the anti-tool cards on the two, which are Lost Vacuum and Jamming Tower, and these are as a reaction to the Louisville results. Doing some quick maths based on the Day 2 data, there was an increase in anti-tool cards as part of the overall Day 2 card pool when you look at Louisville to Lille, a 0.66% representation to a 0.95% representation of all of the cards in the Day 2 card pool. And there was also a higher likelihood of facing a deck with a tool countermeasure. 33% of decks in Louisville versus 46% of decks in Lille Day 2. All very interesting, but of course, deck and card choices seldom are only for the one matchup, with both having utility across the meta. Now for the main stories that came out of the Lille Regional Championships. Although there was a heavy presence of Lugia in Day 2, multiple Snorlax controls were able to perform very well in the tournament, and one even able to shine all the way up to a top 4 finish. And then despite all the masses bringing Raging Bolt to Lille, only one of the 9 Day 2 players was able to make it into top cut. As part of the rest of the top cut, 2 Lugias soared high into 2 top 8 spots, and there was only space for 1 rare candy deck in Dragapult Pidgeot. The 2 most notable decks that were interesting outside the top 9, however, were Sander Wojcik's Rotomless Snorlax and the other sore thumb, Gouging Fire, piloted by ancient Entei connoisseur Luke Kirkham. But the true story and main characters of this tournament was Regidrago V-Star, which dominated the top cut, taking 4 of the top 9 asymmetric cut spots. 2 had even gone undefeated up until this point, and the tournament's ultimate champion, James Cox, was also one of the 5. James had become the unofficial star of the stream, running through a gauntlet of top players in Lille, featuring on 4 out of the 5 final stream matches. Round 12, James had faced off and defeated Nico Alabash's Terrapagos EX deck. Top 16, having finished 8th and parted the asymmetric cut, there was a mirror match victory against Nina Eisenblätter. In top 4, we returned back to James, where he faced another mirror match and got the dub against Alberto Conti. And then, of course, there was the final, finally taking down Clement Corbar's Dragapult Pidgeot deck, despite going 1 game down. In fact, James had even had to best a fellow testing partner in a mirror match in top 8 that made it 3 mirror matches until the final. James piloted an impressive 60 that we've seen before. Most notably that there was a top 16 finish by John Eng at the Dortmund Regionals in September. Using an already strong foundation of Regidrago and utilizing a 1-1 Noctowl line with that fantastic Jewel Seeker ability, provides the deck with that additional consistency without always needing to expend the V-Star power, saving it for future turns or providing combo pieces for the late game. With additional consistency with Squawkabilly EX and utilizing tech cards at the right time like Jamming Tower and Temple of Sinnoh, this concoction finally found itself the right mix to take down a regional. With this win, James Cox has claimed his first regional champion title, after a series of impressive placements, including a fantastic top 4 finish at Worlds in 2022 and a string of consistent strong showings at both regionals and international championships. So what's coming next for the European circuit? With only a short gap until the next event, the next major is the Pokémon Regional Championships in Gdansk, Poland, our 3rd stop. After that, only a special event in Buenos Aires remains before we reach the climax of this format at the Latin America International Championships in Sao Paulo, Brazil. With the meta forming a strong core and foundation now, the coming events will likely focus less on broad archetypes and more on the tech choices within those decks. So there are going to be many questions going into Gdansk. Will Regidrago V-Star become even more popular than it already is? Will Raging Bolt finally fall off from that #1 spot? And the question on everyone's lips, will another European regional fall to another non-European following Japan's Ryuki Okada's victory in Dortmund and our European adopted Australian James Cox's victory in Lille? I'm excited to see what happens next in Gdansk, the amber capital of the world, and how it shapes the field for the final upcoming events. Thanks for watching, everyone. Please let me know in the comments what you thought of the breakdown, the good, the bad, and the ugly, and just whether you'd like to see more summaries like these for tournaments going forward as well. And of course, don't forget to hit the subscribe button if you had enjoyed it, or if you didn't. Your support is what makes this all possible. Hopefully see you at a tournament soon. See you later.